Final hour Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Our best bets later in the hour. Brian Hayes, Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star, Bruce Boudreau here in a moment. Farhan Lalji later in the hour. Nathan Rourke returning to the CFL, signing back with the BC Lions. Farhan tweeting out this hour the compensation, the hard money in Rourke's deal for 2025, which I guess will be next year, is $749,000 and $809,000 in 2026.
Okay.
$200,000 of that in each year is marketing money, which does not count against the salary cap. The rest of this year, I believe he's getting paid around $250 or something the rest of the way. But that's a serious investment. Like, that's big money. Yet, when he was in BC a few years ago, he lit up the league. He took it by storm. Canadian kid coming back. He's gained some experience in the NFL. I don't know how he applies that to his return to the CFL, but the last time we played, man, this guy was a wizard behind center, both with his arm, with his legs. He really did it all. And then he got injured and missed a lot of the season and never really returned to form.
And it's intriguing to me that he decided this quickly to come back to the CFL, because we had the nail gun on yesterday, and Nail's as plugged as anybody with the agents of these guys and with the tone of pro football. And Naylor's best guess was he'd probably stick it out because, to your point about the injuries piling up in the NFL, there's always quarterback injuries. And the idea, if you're going to try and make the NFL, sometimes you got to wait it out until the right opportunity presents itself, and you don't know when it's going to present itself until the right meniscus tears or the right Achilles snaps, right? In a spot where you might get a chance. And I think Naylor I certainly thought that he might wait it out a little longer. I guess he thought, hey, I've come this far. Another team releases me.
That's the thing, man. It keeps adding up, right?
Yeah.
It's been a long time since he really played, too. Because even, that rookie year a couple of years ago in BC, again, he got injured and he missed the last, 7 or 8 weeks of the year. And I believe he returned for the playoffs, but he wasn't himself. So effectively, he's played 10 games, 12 games in the last 3 or 4 years.
That's a good point.
That's a long time to go when you're a young guy. When you're in your mid-20s and you love football and you want to play. And I think also just getting rejected so many times over time, it's got to really kind of mess with your psyche a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I'm waiting, and why would you trust the next team, right? You go to Jacksonville, I'm sure they sold him a bill of goods. Third string, eventually they release him. New England, he ends up there. They release him. He ends up with the Giants. They didn't even give him a snap. Like, my understanding is it was basically Dable said, you're our fourth guy. Go stand over there.
Yeah.
They cut him. And he's in Atlanta. He jumped around and around and around, and then Atlanta kept him for 72 hours and moved on. After a while, I think it's probably the better play. Stop waiting and stop thinking you're going to be rejected. Accept something and take the positive out of it, as much as it didn't go his way. He wants to be in the NFL. That's why he went down there.
Yeah.
He took on the challenge. He went through that journey. He tried. It didn't work out. Come back, sign this deal. It's a 2.5-year deal, 3-year deal. Play it out. Play great. Rack up your stats. Make money. Try to win a Grey Cup or two. And the NFL could be waiting there again in 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe that ship has sailed. Then guess what? Have yourself a 10, 12, 15-year great career in the CFL.
Yeah. Become
the greatest Canadian quarterback of all time. Stay in the league in some capacity beyond that. It's a great life.
Oh, it's a great life.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's not what you wanted.
No.
But it's still a great life.
But I mean, it's a great life, but the way the goalposts have shifted over the last decade, there used to be a time when, it was a great life and it was somewhat comparable. But now that the NFL is paying players, playing quarterbacks, mediocre, second string, third string quarterbacks, forget 700,000, forget 800,000. They're paying them $10 million. Obviously we know at the high end, quarterbacks are making 50. They'll be making 60, right? We'll be looking at a $100 million quarterback in what, a decade, maybe 5 years?
Probably, yeah.
Probably. So it's just exponential, right? It's just the money is just exponential.
It definitely is. Yet it's grown a lot in the CFL too.
Yeah.
There weren't anyone in this league making $800,000 a decade ago.
That's true.
20, 30 years ago.
Oh, and $800,000's a great life.
Yeah, Damon Allen wasn't making that money. Doug Flutie wasn't making that money. Warren Moon wasn't up here making the equivalent of $800,000. That's a lot of cash. Chad Kelly made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And obviously we know where that's likely going in the future here.
I know, but you understand why guys want to take that lottery ticket because it is a lottery win.
The practice squad, you make a fortune.
Yeah.
You make a fortune to not play in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
You make a lot of money to be on the practice squad. And once you get that opportunity, and this is the crazy thing about the NFL, talk about sample size, it's the complete opposite of that in football. There is no, have one great game.
Yes.
We'll talk to Matt Flynn about that. Throw 4 touchdowns in a meaningless game and someone will give you $70 million.
Amazing. That's what I mean.
Like, that's the way the NFL works.
A couple things have to break your way. The right injury.
Yep.
You get in a game. Suddenly you throw a couple good passes. He knows he has that talent to do that.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. But in the end, it's a big win for the CFL because he's back. Nathan Rourke, Canadian kid, Toronto area guy, back with the BC Lions. Speaking of a local hero here in Toronto, former Marley, longtime NHL coach. You see him on the NHL Network on TSN all the time. Here's our good buddy Bruce Boudreau. How you doing, Bruce?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you today?
We're doing very well. Obviously, you're aware of the big news in town here. Yesterday it broke that I guess it's a passing of the baton. John Tavares will no longer be the captain of the Maple Leafs. Auston Matthews will be anointed the 26th captain in franchise history tomorrow. What did you make of that news when you saw it break last night?
Well, it's difficult to think. I don't know whose idea it was. I mean, to me, John seems to be the kind of guy that said, hey, listen, this is Austin's team now. Make him the captain. Or was it did it have something to do with the contract? Maybe he wasn't getting an extension. I don't know. But, I mean, I think it is Austin's team. I went through the same thing with Alex. He was a young guy, but he had come up and he was now the face of the franchise. And Chris Clark who was a really good captain, but was playing on the fourth line. And that's when George traded him so Alex could be captain. And it was an easy decision. I don't know if Alex was ready for it at 22 years old, but at the same time, it was his team, and it's been his team ever since. So I think it's something that had to take place, whether it was taking place this early in the summer or after next year if John wasn't there anymore. I don't know, but it was something that was going to eventually take place. So, I mean, let's just do it now and get it over with, I think is basically what the Leafs thought.
Well, Bruce, I mean, if you're the coach in that room and Craig Berube is going to be that guy, what's your level of concern that you've got a guy in John Tavares who's had something taken away from him, as good a pro as he is? I think any good competitor is going to be humbled by that to some degree. And how do you handle a guy having something taken away? As much as Austin is gaining a very prestigious role, John is losing one. How's that going to go down?
Well, it's obviously conversations have been had before we're talking about it here, I think. I mean, the same thing happened in San Jose. Joe Thornton was relieved of the captaincy. I don't know if it was Patrick Marleau or Joe Pavelski was relieved of it. And those two guys were guys that could handle it. And they handled it in a tremendous way. I think John Tavares is a guy that's going to handle it like the complete pro that he is. But I mean, I think bridges had to be a little bit mended because, boy, I always thought when it happened to Thornton that if you didn't handle it the right way, it's a real kick in the teeth. But I think Brad Treliving, obviously, and Craig Berube must have had some pretty good sit-downs with John before this decision was made.
Where do you think Craig Berube factors in on this? Because I remember when Rick Bowness took over in Winnipeg, one of the first moves was Blake Wheeler was basically stripped of the captaincy. And if I can recall correctly, Bruce, like a lot of that was directed towards like Rick thought that was the right move. Like Rick came in and had a role in that, even though he was a new coach. Would you expect Craig Berube to have any impact on this? Because the way it's being reported is it was tree living and then working with Tavares, and then you bring in Matthews, and now it's Matthews. Like, I haven't heard anything, and I'm sure we'll find out more answers tomorrow, on where Craig Berube comes into play in this.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't know either, but I got to believe, just like Rick Bowness, this whole Leaf team is starting fresh, and we're starting fresh with a new captain, a new coach for the first time in 5 years, and so I'm sure he's totally on board with it, and I'm sure that he actually likes the idea, because if he plans to be there a long time, Auston Matthews is definitely going to be there a long time, and they want to get that relationship really good right from the start. So I'm sure even Craig this summer has had some great conversations with Auston about the team. So, I mean, if I was the coach of the team, I would have loved to have been in on it and would have put my stamp on it and say, let's start fresh. And it's a new team starting next year. It's not the same old, the regular season doesn't mean anything. It's about the playoffs. I think it's starting fresh, and I think it's a good idea.
With Bruce Boudreau, yeah, it's interesting. As you know, Bruce, on the outside, there's a lot of Leaf fans, have been disappointed with the playoff failures year after year after year. And there's a certain amount of fans that are somewhat either apathetic or kind of cynical in nature in terms of like, all right, wake me up in April. Yet there's also, a fair amount of fans that are excited with everything and always jacked and a new season and eternal optimism and all that. But within the room, like, you can't be affected by that. You have to treat every season new. I'm curious how, you would expect Berube to address the team as a new coach. There has been turnover. I think they've made some good moves, bringing in some good defensemen. I'm curious to see what Wall and Stollerts do as a tandem in net. But, it is a fresh start for him. The history's still there with the 4 core players up front, Morgan, Riley. There's a number of guys who have been here for quite some time. But for him, it's new. How would you expect Craig Berube to address this group once we do get to camp? And how can he make this feel fresh and unique and have them focused on the preseason and the regular season instead of putting the cart before the horse and even thinking about the playoffs?
Yeah, but I think it is fresh. I think the Leafs are trying to do everything in their power to make this sound like we've got the same team, but we're starting over. This is it's going to be a new system. It's going to be a new style, a new technique. Craig Berube is a really good defensive-minded coach, and I think that's why they added three defensemen, and I think that's one of the ways that they're going to play. They're going to always have that offense, but I think they want to steer clear of, we didn't trade Mitch Marner, and it's the same old Leafs here again. I think they want to make it sound like everything is fresh, brand new, and we're going to have a new system to play, and it's going to be a tighter style defensive system with the same great offensive players. And I think that's how he's going to approach it. And I think everybody on the team will think, hey, this is really fresh. This is really new. Let's give this a try because I'm really excited about it.
So, Bruce, you're the coach of this team. Let's just say, hypothetically, you are the coach of this team tomorrow, and you're over at Real Sports Bar and Grill, and there's this ceremonial handoff of the C. Auston Matthews gets the C on number 34. And you get him aside as the coach of the Maple Leafs. What do you say to him?
Just be yourself. Don't change a thing. I mean, we're not asking you to do more. We're not asking you to do less right now. You just be the leader that you always have been and always are, and that's going to be great with us. And I think that's the approach they're going to take, and I think that's the approach Auston wants too, because you don't want to make him think that, I've got the C on my sweater. I got to be more like John Tavares. I got to be more like somebody else who he admires as a captain. He just wants to be himself. I think if I was Craig, I'd say just be yourself. That's why you're the captain. We want you to be who you are.
Mm-hmm. In terms of looking out for him, I don't know if you feel you have to. I mean, he's not a kid. Austin's been in the league a long time. He's got a lot of confidence. But it is different. You referenced the Ovechkin scenario where he was younger at that time. Was he ready? I guess you got to find out. What will you be looking for out of Matthews that will suggest he is comfortable in this situation and that it's not going to have any negative effect on him whatsoever? What would you be looking for if you're behind the scenes, if you're the coach of this team? What kind of P's and Q's are you trying to pick up on that makes you feel, okay, this was the right call. This is the guy. He's comfortable. He's our captain. Let's go here.
Well, the big thing with me is I don't want him to all of a sudden think that he has to be everybody's babysitter. Like, I mean, and, you know, like he leads the way he leads by the way he plays. Not like, okay, I got to make sure that the parties are okay. We're going to have meetings, team dinners here. We're going to have doing this. Actually, when we had Alex, what we did was Mike Knuble took over all of that stuff, that off-ice sort of leadership, and just let Alex lead on the ice until he was ready. And I think at the beginning, that's what it's going to be. He's still going to take his lead from John on a lot of things. And, I mean, John will probably be the one guy he comes to for advice all the time. But, I mean, I don't want, if he's my captain, I don't want him overthinking the captaincy that much. I want him just to play the game because, to me, he's as good as any player in the league, so that's what I want.
Yeah.
Hey, Bruce, I was going to ask you, you know, that like looking at the history of the sport, there's, you know, you've heard of teams where the players have voted for the captain. You've heard of teams where the owner appoints the captain. The coach can appoint the captain, the GM, whatever it is. What do you think is like, do you believe in a certain way it should be handed off? Should it be a player's decision? Should it be a management decision or coach's decision? How do you see it?
Well, if I had the players vote, I wouldn't care which way they voted. I'd still pick who I wanted.
It's not a democracy, right? Your call.
You're not letting the players run the asylum there that we picked you captain. I mean, I think management in whole. I mean, the GM is the boss and the president, and they're going to be, and the coaches got the feel of the room. Between those three, they know who's going to be the captain of this team. And just because a lot of times, especially with younger kids, not in the NHL, but I mean, it becomes a who's my favorite guy type thing, and that's not what you want at the NHL level. You want somebody else to pick it other than the players, because the players, you know, pick it for their own different reasons sometimes.
With Bruce Boudreau, we saw a couple of offer sheets handed out today, which we don't see a lot in the NHL. Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway, both Edmonton Oilers RFAs, both signed by St. Louis. You've been around the league, you know, for a while here, Bruce. Why is it we don't see this more often? Because I kind of love the chaos. I fully support the idea of trying to steal other players and try to improve your team whichever way you possibly can.
Oh yeah, like I mean, if you can, hey, you might talk nice to the next GM, but I mean, if you could rob him blind, you're going to rob him blind. I mean, whether it's trades or whether it's offer sheets or not. I mean, I think St. Louis looked at what they have. They also look at what Edmonton has to pay. And, I mean, for those two guys, it's not a big price to pay. Now, if you were all of a sudden putting in a $10 million offer or a huge offer, and you have to lose 4 first-rounders or 5 first-rounders, that's a different thing. But the price isn't that steep if they could get these two guys that they really would like to have.
Yeah, we'll see. It's an interesting time of year, mid-August. There always seems to be something coming out of the league, right? Bruce,
yeah.
Like it goes to sleep for about a month, 5 weeks, and then all of a sudden, because there's still other good players out there that need like PTOs or tryout invites, and I would expect some more news to come out in the next few weeks.
100%. That's what's going to come next is the PTOs and who's accepting PTOs. Because the one thing about PTOs, you talk to the player beforehand, and you either say, listen, we don't really have any intention of signing you, but what we're going to do is we're going to play you in 3 or 4 games, and hopefully if you do well, some other team is going to pick you up. Or you could say, hey, listen, we don't have the money right now, but we're going to sign you. We're bringing you to camp that if you look the way we feel you look, then we've got the intention of signing you. So, I mean, they'll start happening towards the end of the month, and especially in the first week of September, because no player really wants to go in on a PTO unless they've been promised something. Years ago, when I was in Washington, I brought in Matt Hendricks on a PTO, but I told him, I said, if you come to camp, I promise I won't let them send you anywhere. And, you know, he ended up having a pretty good NHL career, and he was a really good player. But, I mean, those things go on as well. Depending on the size of your training camp, there's a lot of things that are going to happen now, and a lot of people have been playing chicken with each other, with the agents and the team. But I think as it gets closer to the end of the month, you're going to see some more signings.
Yep, for sure. Great catching up with you, Bruce. Appreciate it in the summertime. We'll do it again soon.
All right, guys. Take care.
There's Bruce Boudreau, our TSN hockey analyst, former Maple Leaf himself. And it's always great to catch up with Bruce. And yeah, I have to look to see what kind of names are still out there, but this is generally when it starts to break.
Yeah.
The next few weeks, and then you allow the player to get into town, get into camp.
Well, especially if there's captain skates that captain wants them to attend.
Got to have the captain skate.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how Matthews, he'll be in good spirits tomorrow. Why would you not? I mean, it's summertime. You're in probably a golf shirt and a pair of shorts. There's no pressure to do anything tomorrow. But I'm curious if he's got something planned in terms of how he wants to approach it. Like, does he have anything he feels he should say, has to say? If Tavares is there, what's that dynamic gonna be like in terms of handling? Because what will be awkward is if someone asks, how are you going to be different than John, or how do you improve upon John's leadership role in that? And I don't know how he's going to answer that. I would guess he probably won't, or try to dance around it.
I think you can sort of do what Bruce just said. You can just say, I'm just going to be myself. John is John, and John did a great job.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be Auston, and I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to do the best I can to lead this team. And to your point, do you say the dreaded words to a Stanley Cup, or do you just say to where we can get to? Like, what did he say when he signed?
I think he has to say it. I do. I would challenge him to just acknowledge it. Just acknowledge what this is all about. It's not like you're the highest paid player in the league. You're a marketing superstar. You're worth a fortune. You've done it all. You scored 69 goals. You've won a Hart. You win the Rocket every year. You've done everything.
Yeah.
And you will continue to do that. And that is expected of you. And that's not saying anything that Matthews doesn't know. He knows he's still expected to put up points and score. But this is not about leading the charge in terms of chasing Rockets as the captain of the Maple Leafs. Like, this is simply about them trying to do as much as they possibly can to invoke change, and that change paying off in the spring and in the playoffs. Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's just about the playoffs. Because, again, during the regular season, this team has had no issues in terms of leadership, in terms of it being a rudderless ship, in terms of it being an embarrassment to the city or the fan base. The complete opposite.
Yeah.
They have been run incredibly well, and they're very likable, and they're good ambassadors for the city, and they go about their business, and they play well, and they win, and they score. And the regular season is not an issue whatsoever.
No.
It's obviously more acute than that. It's simply the playoffs. And if we all know that that's the case, then just acknowledge the whole point of playing in the playoffs. It's not to win a round or two.
Yeah.
It's not to learn lessons. It's not to apply lessons. Just acknowledge it.
It's not.
Well, it's not supposed to be.
That's what they've been saying for many
just
post-playoff.
Avoid all those cliches and hammer it home. I'm proud to be here. I can't wait to be the captain of this team, and I can't wait to win a Stanley Cup as the captain of the Maple Leafs. Say that, and I guarantee you it will get people jacked up in this city.
Yeah.
It's really not a hard.
And then you got to do that little thing called deliver on the promise.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But even if you don't say it, that's still the expectation. I guess that's my point. Like, everyone's waiting for you to deliver on that anyway. Whether you admit to it publicly or acknowledge it publicly doesn't change the expectations.
No.
Right. Like, it's guarantees in sports are frivolous generally anyway. You know what I mean? And it's not like anyone's saying, I guarantee we're going to win in 24-25. But just acknowledge that that's the only really thing that we're talking about here. And it's a very hyper-focused group, and that's the plan.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Hey, man.
Just address it, man. Elephant in the room. Do it.
It all seems so simple, doesn't it?
Seems so simple. That would be my suggestion to him.
Yeah.
Be yourself. Don't say anything you think is unbecoming of yourself or stupid or what. Don't be brash or dumb. And he's not going to do that. Be comfortable. Be open. Be honest. Talk about how it's a great honor, how you've learned from John and others, and it's incredible to be a part of that group. And I can't wait to be the captain of a team that brings a Stanley Cup to Toronto. That's all we care about.
That would be the thing
in some
to say.
fashion.
Hope they're writing this down, Hayes, as they're listening.
I'm guessing he's in town. I'm guessing they're all in town. And yeah, because it should be it's clouded with awkwardness because, again, Tavares is still on the team and all that, and because of the history and all that. But this should be a great moment for the franchise. Like, it's a big moment for the Maple Leafs.
It should be a big moment, but it just, as you say, there's a lot of cynicism about it.
Well,
because it's a bit of a shuffling the deck chairs. The Titanic had a captain too, as many internet commenters has said today.
Sure, but you can always rewrite the script, man.
You can, man.
That's why you play the games.
It just takes one good run,
That's all it is.
Everything changes.
Yep, it really does for everyone involved. All right, Farhan Lalji coming up a little bit later in the hour. Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel, still to come as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, today's Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Kevin Gausman on the mound for the Jays tonight. His home and road splits are wild. At home, he just gets lit up all year.
Yeah.
And on the road, his numbers are very solid. He's on the mound tonight. I'm going to play the under tonight. I just don't think there's a lot of offense really on either team. The Angels are terrible. They are horrendous. And Will Wagner with 3 hits last night. I'm going to have Will Wagner recording a hit tonight, and I'm playing the under. It's paying plus 159. That's a really cool story. He's 26, signs the deal, comes up, plays second base last night. First 3 at-bats, 3 hits. Welcome to the majors.
Nice line drive swing.
Yeah.
Like it.
Listen, there you go. Will Wagner, man. That's what we're looking for. Vladdy's streak came to an end. Give us something else. Maybe Will Wagner takes off.
Hey, man, the fruits of the Kikuchi deal. Gotta love it.
That's right. And he's been lights out with Houston.
Yeah.
Kikuchi, man. That Houston team, they were such a disaster the first month and a half.
And now they're rolling.
And now they're probably going to win the AL West.
Yeah. Kind of not a surprise. You knew they had a run in them, right?
Right. But it's been like just a decade of perfection, basically. Like they make the playoffs every year. They make the CS basically every year, the Champions Series. And obviously,
cheating or not.
World Series. Cheating or otherwise.
Yeah.
But still, the last time they won the World Series, I guess they did that cleanly, right?
Well,
I don't think they were cheating.
Don't think so.
Not that I'm aware of.
Indication. No investigation.
Somewhat of a redemption. Not that anyone wanted to hear from them, but
yeah,
they're tough to knock off, man. Like they bottomed out and they've had to go through different front office, different managers. There's been some turnover, and yet they continue to just win ball games every single year. Pretty incredible.
It is. No, it's impressive.
Like they're a well-run machine, man. Today's Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and find thousands of ways to play. Please play responsibly. 19 plus, physically located in Ontario. Yeah, Vladdy's hit streak came to an end. So 22 games in a row.
22.
Pretty incredible.
Oh, he was almost hitting 500.
Yeah. Yeah, he was at one point. 20 games in, he was hitting like 502.
Incredible.
Hit an OPS of like 1,600.
It was insane.
Yeah.
It really was. It was as good as we've ever seen in this town, right? It was peak Jose Bautista.
Yeah.
It was, sadly, they went 11-11 in those 22 games.
Yeah, I mean, you dropped 2 or 3 against Oakland at home. Like, it's not a surprise. This is what they are. They're a bad baseball team.
Yeah.
Like, they're awful, and they're worse post-trade deadline.
Well, and the message has been sent, right? Like,
you're done.
You wonder what it does to the clubhouse mentality when you sell off all the expiring deals and you basically wave the white flag publicly and say, yeah, we're looking toward 2025. Like, how do you go to work every day, right?
Well, I guess Vladdy found a way to make it work.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying it. Like, it's just...
From a winning standpoint, individually, you can maybe lock in, but yeah, you're not thinking team first or anything along those lines. I mean, wins and losses are completely irrelevant at this point.
They really are.
Yeah.
It's all about the individual storylines. What did we get in this deal? What's this young guy doing? Is Will Wagner any good? Look Perfido. Look on down. Hey, who else can we bring up? It's not exactly a murderer's row of prospects, but, they got to go with what they got.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you got to give it a shot at this point. You've got, Arelvis Martinez will return at some point.
We hope.
Yeah, you hope.
If he can test negative.
If he's clean. And Ricky Tiedemann is 2 years away now? I mean, it's everything about the year has just been a tough year. But this will be tough also. You talk about the mentality. Like, this is where John Schneider, you got to set some sort of restrictions on allowing players to get bad habits, and you got to make sure that people are showing up on time. So you can't let it turn into a rodeo.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's not easy to do, but if you're going to be a part of the program next year, and I'm not sure he will be. I think he probably will come back if they keep Ross Atkins.
Why change it?
Why they would change Don Schneider. Exactly. If you're going to keep the GM, you probably keep the manager. Then a lot of these guys could be back next year. You got to set a tone for them. And that's difficult to do because, it's understood, like you just said, they've thrown up the white flag. Like management has, ownership has, it's over. Yet next year, the manager is supposed to show up with a tone that actually forget that we're going to win.
This is 2025.
This one's different,
yeah.
right? I know a lot of you guys are back, but that last year was irrelevant.
Last year, we were looking toward next year.
And now
this
we're at next year.
We're looking toward right now.
Yes. Now it's the real
Tough
deal.
sell in some ways.
Very much so. All right. Farhan Lalji will join us. Farhan's take on Nathan Rourke's return to the Canadian Football League. Nathan signing a 3-year deal with the BC Lions. What happens with Vernon Adams? What happens with Rourke in terms of him getting right in? Will he play this weekend? And how big of a get is this for the Lions, for the Canadian Football League? What does it mean for Nathan Rourke and his future with the NFL? That more still to come. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Farhan Lalji coming up here in a moment from Vancouver. Nathan Rourke back in the CFL. Tried it with a few different teams in the NFL. Couldn't hang on, and now he's back where he was dominant a couple of years ago. He signed a 3-year deal. He may play as quickly as this weekend. That's what some of the reports are indicating.
Wow.
That's a quick turnaround. We'll get to that with Farhan in just a moment and get the FedEx Cup playoffs coming up, the President's Cup in about a month in Montreal. Going to get some news on that, I think, in the next couple of weeks. I don't know how many Canadians are going to be on that team.
Tough choices for Mike Weir.
Yeah. I think Corey Connors would be on the team.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if he wasn't. I think at least one more Canadian will be there.
Oh, yeah. There'll be a lot of pressure to get more than one. Well,
there'll be pressure for sure, but you look at Nick Taylor, he had that great, he shoot 62 or 63 on Thursday. He didn't even make the cut.
I know.
He just, they went to the Olympics. They didn't really do a lot there, and you got Hadwin, who's been playing pretty well. Pender's been playing well. Mackenzie Hughes is a gamer. You've got options, but you also have a duty to fill out the best team you possibly can.
Yeah.
It's not Canada's team, it's the international team. So,
and the problem is, it would be nice if the top 6 get in automatically, and none of them are Canadians.
Right.
So it would be much better for Mike Weir if at least one of the Canadians was an automatic.
Give me a guarantee.
Yeah. He's on because he made it.
Yeah.
On the standing. It's not because I'm Canadian, guys. I'm not putting guys on this team just because I'm Canadian. But to be frank, you want as many Canadian guys as possible because it's a home crowd.
Of course. Royal Montreal is going to be rocking, and there's going to be a lot of Canadian support.
Right.
I don't know how many Australians are coming up to root on Adam Scott, but there'll be a lot of Canadians there.
Right. And Adam Scott is on an automatic
Yeah,
bid
of course
right
he is. He's actually been great this year. He's played really, really well.
Year.
But, I guess we'll find that out in the next couple of weeks. All right, Nathan Rourke is back. I'm a big fan of Nathan. He's been on this show a bunch of times. He's come in studio and hung out with us. Really interesting guy. Wanted it badly to make it in the NFL. Obviously, this is a difficult pill to swallow that it didn't work out. He jumped around from one team to the next. They never really gave him an opportunity outside of Jacksonville, I think. But this seems like the right play. Get back to the CFL, start playing. He's making good money. And he goes back to where it started a few years ago in BC, and we head out to BC now. And here's Farhan Lalji of TSN. Farhan, what's your response? So I guess I'll ask you about the marketplace. How are people responding to the idea of Nathan Rourke returning to the Lions?
Well, you know what I think? I think once they found out I did your show, then it's going to be real, right? Because I'm not on with Karolnik and O-Dog and Corrado and all these amateurs.
Yeah.
I am on the big show with Hayes and Feschuk. This is a big, big deal. So this talk is obviously resonating, across the country that I get on the big show.
As it should.
As it should. So, I know that the Lions sold 400 or 500 tickets within the first hour of the announcement for the game on Sunday. There's a lot of interest, a lot of buzz. Nathan Rourke's name resonates. Talking to people around the league when he was doing it in 2022, they would always tell me that this is the one guy that can sell tickets league-wide, and I think they're right. So there's a lot of excitement. It's a Grey Cup year. Clearly the team is going all in on every level, and it'll be interesting because, I know we're going to get to this at some point, but, this is a team that's had some success already this year with Vernon Adams and all of that, and But at the end of it all, I think people know just how good this guy can be. And I'm kind of, like you a little bit, right? Like, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed for Nathan. I think Nathan, and I'll continue to say this until his career is over, Nathan Rourke is a top 20 quarterback on the planet. I truly, as a guy that has been to multiple NFL camps and practices and bigger games and smaller games and college football and the draft process and pro days, this guy can play at that level. He can start at that level, and it's just bizarre to me how he has not been in a meaningful situation to get reasonably evaluated through all of this. And this is where it's taken him, but it's good for the league that he's back.
Yeah, it sure is. And I agree with your assessment in terms of what he did in BC. And then you look at that training camp last year in Jacksonville. Remember that one quarter he played, or quarter and a half, where it was incredible. He made that one miraculous touchdown play that really rang out. And I thought, okay, there, he's shown it. Like, he's comfortable in the NFL. And I'm curious, I don't know if you've spoken with him or not. I'm sure you'll be around him a lot this week and certainly moving forward. Would you expect him to show bitterness? I mean, how does he transition back into the Canadian Football League, considering obviously his dreams, were not fulfilled here? He wanted to stay in the NFL. He wanted to play in the NFL for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think there'll be a little bit of bitterness. And look, it wasn't just that one quarter, right? If you look at all 3 preseason games he played in, right, his overall success rate was really, really impressive. I think 5 touchdowns and 9 drives over 3 games. And I think he had a good sample size. And for it to go the way it did in New York and Atlanta, where he reps and 5 days of practice in Atlanta, no reps, and then gets into the preseason game, I'd be bitter too, right? So, what did he do to kind of deserve that? I think there'll be a little bit, but Nathan does like it in BC, right? I mean, he views BC as home. He's got a house here. He was in the Lions locker room a week before camp started. After a game, there's a comfort level there. So he's not going to want to bring that back. And the one thing with Nathan I always found in the time I dealt with him, especially in 2022, Nathan's biggest superpower was his ability to stay present, right? His ability to have mind and body in the same place. And, there'd be games where he'd throw some picks and bad things would happen, and he would just keep chopping wood and stay focused and do his thing. And I think he will not be a guy that comes back here thinking, hey, I'm thinking about the next stop, and when I try the NFL again, it'll be game by game, practice by practice, and do everything he needs to do to have success here. And I don't think his NFL aspirations are done. I would hope, for Nathan's sake, that he doesn't go back after this season, but I do know he's going to try it again, and he should. But I think it would be best for him, in my opinion, that he breathe a little bit in terms of how he's presented in the NFL, away from the guy that got cut twice in 2 weeks, right? Like, you don't want to go back in December and, oh yeah, you were that guy that got cut twice in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Like, I think he needs to have a bit of time away from that situation, and maybe after the 25 season, then, kick those tires again. But I don't think his aspirations are done, and I think that the bitterness will quickly subside the day he steps on the practice field in Surrey tomorrow.
Hey, Farhan, given your high opinion of this guy, you're calling him a top 20 guy on the planet at the quarterback position. I got a lot of respect for that opinion. But why do you think these NFL teams, when they evaluate a player like Nathan Rourke, do it so quickly, what seems so haphazardly, barely giving him any opportunity among, whatever it is, 3rd, 4th string guys that may or may not make teams in very sort of, chaotic circumstances on a training camp field? Or, why do you think it is that way, given how important the position is and, how sophisticated these teams are?
It's a great question, Dave, and I wish I had an answer for you, right? I mean, there are different roles in different rooms. So, for example, the backup quarterback in Jacksonville didn't have to be the second-best quarterback in the building. He had to be Trevor Lawrence's best friend, the guy that could help him get best prepared for his job, because he's the star, right? And then, the way things went down in New England, where Bill Belichick liked him, different people then come in, and I know that some of it was the same that were under Belichick, but you knew that whole franchise was being set up to bring in the next guy, right? So they weren't really concerned about what was in after him. And I can't wrap my head around the Giants. I've heard different stories. Like, I know Nathan when he was in Jacksonville, he showed a level of deference to both Trevor Lawrence and C.J. Beathard. It was his first opportunity. He knew how talented Lawrence was, so basically he knew his place. Whereas I think he might have shown a level of frustration in New York, is kind of how it had been presented back to me, and maybe that didn't sit well. I can't wrap my head around what happened in Atlanta. I mean, I knew he was never going to get past number 3 there, barring injury, but this is a team that cut John Paddock, who's a nobody, to sign Nathan Rourke, who they tried to claim off waivers last year when the Giants wound up claiming him. Had great things to say about him at the front end, and then didn't give him a practice rep and threw him in a preseason game where, yeah, it was 3 of 13, but had a bunch of drops. The Atlanta one really puzzles me, and I need to dig into that a bit more. But, you know, what's weird is for me, like I'm a process-based guy when it comes to football and coaching, evaluate, give guys chances. I just went to 5 NFL training camps last week, guys. Every one of them gave reps to their third-string guy, right? And even their fourth-string guy. Casey Bauman, when I was in the Chargers camp, who actually qualifies as a Canadian for the draft, and a guy that I know, he lives 10 minutes from me, he was the number 4, and he got 10 reps in team for the Chargers. Right? Trey Lance is a 3, got a ton of reps with the Cowboys. Every place I went to, these guys got reps, but they don't, you know, where he went to in his last 2 stops, they just weren't willing to do that because of other agendas, right? And so it's tough. Like let's use Kyle Shanahan as an example. Like, you know, Nathan needs a guy that has some juice in an organization. Like Kyle Shanahan, Brock Purdy was 1 pick away from being Nathan Rourke. Right, he was the last pick in the draft when he was almost unpicked. So he goes to training camp, and Kyle Shanahan, who has so much juice in that 49er organization, can go to John Lynch and say, hey, you know what? That guy you traded 3 first-round draft picks for, well, this guy we picked last is better. Figure it out. Mm-hmm. Brian Daboll doesn't have that kind of juice, right? And Raheem Morris is new in the building now in Atlanta. So I don't know, but every situation's different. And when I see at certain camps where a guy gets evaluated, and then here he just never even got a practice rep, it's weird to me. So Atlanta, I got to dig into further, but it just varies from league to league or from team to team in the league.
Yeah. So Nathan Rourke, he's there. Vernon Adams is still there. Adams, you know, he stepped up last year, played pretty well, pretty good numbers this year. Obviously, if Rourke's going to stick around, he's going to be the man. What happens with Adams in the future?
Yeah, you know, with Vernon, look, if the season ended today and we're at the midway point, Vernon would be the MOP. And I texted with Vernon this morning. I was blown away by the classy, professional, humble approach he took to the situation as opposed to being bitter. You know, and he trusts me well enough that if he was bitter, he could have been bitter. So I was so impressed with how he took it all. And I think at the end of this, they're going to wind up moving on, right? Because they didn't sign him to this kind of contract for nothing. And what will wind up happening, I've said before that if Nathan really made himself available to all 9 teams in the CFL, all 9 teams would have cleared the decks to get him. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't, that would have been managerial malpractice. I think at least 6 CFL teams now will be interested in Vernon, right? Like, because he's that good. He could provide an upgrade based on ability, upside, or age to at least 6 of the 9 teams, including the Argos. So I would think that there's going to be a lot of interest in Vernon Adams at the end of this season because they can't carry him beyond this. But I think this year, Vernon's going to be the ultimate teammate, and I don't think we've seen the last of him on the field.
Always great catching up with you, Farhan. We appreciate you doing this. I know it's a busy one out there, and we'll do it again down the road. Thank you for this.
Well, I would imagine the Canucks would have to reach the Stanley Cup Finals for you to call me again.
That could happen. That could happen. Yeah. Well, let's do it. Let's do something in September to set the scene on the Vancouver Canucks. How's that sound?
Always a pleasure talking to you guys. We'll do it soon.
You got it. There's Farhan. I'm sensing that he's not happy that he hasn't been on the show more.
Hasn't been on enough. Hasn't been in heavy rotation.
I guess we got to bring in Farhan more.
I guess.
When do we talk about the BC Lions unless they're signing Nathan Rourke?
I love Farhan's take on football, man. He's been a coach.
He jumps around, man. He gets to camps. He goes to like the All-American stuff. You know, he's as connected as it gets when it comes to, you know, both sides of the border and knowing the way teams operate and the way people think.
Yeah,
but
it's fascinating
he's
stuff.
Big on Nathan Rourke. Like, so am I. But, like, top 20 in the world. That's a real testament to how he feels about the guy.
Man.
Yeah, and he said, 400 or 500 tickets immediately, selling jerseys. Like, it's a big, big get for the CFL. Now he's got to stay healthy and play. And
let's hope.
Grey Cup is in BC. So, all right. Thanks to Farhan Lalji. Door's always open whenever he wants to come on.
Okay.
I guess he's got to come on more often. All right, Dave, good seeing you, man.
Great seeing
Thanks
you.
for doing this today. I think Noodles will be in here tomorrow. We're going to do,
right.
Yeah, Noodles. Frankie will be around. Good stuff, everyone behind the scenes. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at 4 p.m. We'll chat then.